Hi, Cheryl Ann. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All righty. Thanks for so many of the great questions and being a guinea pig here.
Sure.
All righty. I could ask questions or I can let you start. I'm going to start with letting you start. What would be most helpful to have me walk you through?
Uh, okay, so I'm a professional organizer and I'm always looking at new tools to share with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
One of the challenges that has been very apparent is that I pretty much up till now have sucked at marketing my business.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't get a handle on that, I'm going to find myself, working at Starbucks,
Yep.
which is fine. They have benefits. I like coffee. However, I'd really love to have 2018 be the year when I have a more consistent approach to, marketing my skills and the help that I provide through, social media, blogging, etc. And when I think about that at the higher level, I basically freeze. I'm in, freeze, flight, or fight mode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I either fly, I run away and watch Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
okay, or I freeze and think, oh, it's too hard.
Okay.
So
Good.
that's the project.
All right. So yeah, let's focus on this one.
Okay.
And my sort of the way that I'm going to facilitate this is we're going to start at the high level goal and
Okay.
then walk through. We probably won't go any lower than the months of quarter 1, 2, and 3, but sort of walk from the high level to the quarters, and then look at how we might do that for the next 3 months. Does that seem
Dude,
fruitful?
if we could get that far, you'd be my hero.
All righty. Let me get my hero belt on because I might have to put another notch on. All right, here we go. Let's think. We're celebrating the end of the year, Cheryl Ann.
Okay.
And just on the marketing side, right?
Yes.
What are we celebrating?
We're celebrating the fact that my followers on Instagram and Facebook have grown exponentially. I don't have a number to put on that. I know that I should be more specific because I understand SMART goal setting. We're celebrating the fact that my revenue covered, we're like doing a happy dance and setting off fireworks.
Okay. So revenue covers expenses?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's a sales goal. I'm going to focus on the marketing goal.
Yes. Well, and I'm throwing that up there because if I do the marketing right, the sales, follow from that.
Yeah. So for all the entrepreneurs out there who haven't heard me talk about this, I split them this way. Marketing is the general conversations that you have to make people aware of your business, brand, or product.
Right.
Whereas sales are the specific and direct activities that you do to convert a lead into a sale. Okay.
Got it.
They're different things, right?
Yeah.
But just in case people wonder why I split those up. So I've got that up there as a happy dance, and I'm going to put it up there because I love writing goals down. All right. So exponential growth. Give me a number that if you hit those numbers, you would say, you know what? I really got my stuff together on this marketing thing.
Okay. If I have over 1,000 followers on both, I would really have, people would be much more aware of me.
Okay. So what?
I mean,
followers?
Yes.
Facebook.
Right.
On Facebook and Instagram.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a list, a newsletter, anything like that?
I have a list. I haven't done a newsletter in a year because I've been the hamster on the wheel, just, trying to keep my head above water.
Okay. Maybe in another conversations, and everyone knows what I'm going to say here, is if you're really trying to do this, an email list is typically a better way to get there. Okay. But we're not talking business strategy. We're talking how we're going to convert this into how we're going to chunk this down.
Got it.
Okay. So let's think about this over the course of quarters.
Okay.
What needs to happen? What are sort of the quarter size projects that you think need to happen for you to reach this particular goal?
Quarter size project. So if a monthly project is 20 to 30 hours, a quarter is 90 hours, 100 hours.
Think about it more this way, if I can make a suggestion here.
Please.
Do you have, say, for instance, a Facebook editorial strategy or calendar?
No.
Do you have, Instagram is weird because it's not really calendar based in that way, but do you have you developed an Instagram strategy that will lead to growth?
I've just been playing with it lately, which is to post, a DIY Friday fun thing, Soul Food Sunday thing, and a Wednesday wisdom thing.
Okay.
And, in January, I've fallen down on the job.
Would you call that an experiment or a strategy?
I'd call that an experiment.
Okay. So have you done the research of different strategies and different ways to grow that?
No, and I'm guessing that would be a good quarterly objective.
There we go. So research, and this is for Instagram. We're going to split them into two different channels, right?
Thank you.
They are two different channels.
Okay.
Instagram growth and engagement strategies.
Yes, because I want this to be about engagement.
Mm-hmm. And similar thing for Facebook. Research.
Correct.
Facebook growth and engagement strategies. They look the same, but they're going to be different, different things. Now, I know that y'all are not paying me for my handwriting, and so that's basically a placeholder, but you can kind of get what I'm doing here. Now, we know with Facebook that one of those do outs is going to be some branding and something around like a content calendar, something around something like that, right? And so at some point, you're going to need to develop your editorial calendar for Facebook or your posting strategy for Facebook.
Right.
And so we can say this month or this quarter, at that level of perspective, you have two related to these where basically you need to take seriously what it's going to take to get those things done, right? To actually come up and the do out. And I always like to think in terms of when it comes to quarterly sized projects, there is something that you have to create and show. Like if you don't have something that's written, you don't have anything. You just have a bunch of ideas, right?
Okay.
And that might mean you have to look at some templates of what the hell does a social media strategy document look like?
Right.
But that's the output that you want in that particular thing. Okay.
Correct.
And so that's quarter one for both of those. There's going to be some variation of those.
Mm-hmm.
Quarter two is going to be I'm going to do it in my more native. I'm written too big over here. Can you guys see me if I write over here? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Two different colors. So one, this is blue is Instagram. Green is going to be Facebook. Okay, so we would go through and would say, I'm going to cheat and say this is 1 and this is 2, just for sake of time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is project 2. And then we know, unless you have a lot of excess focus blocks in your calendar, like what I would want to ask is, do you think it's realistic for you to do the research that you need to with the time you have available and to start to develop a posting strategy / engagement strategy in quarter 1 for Facebook?
I don't have a choice. I have to.
Okay. So we know that this is part, I'm going to say, keep up with your colors, Charlie. So I'm going to say this goes into 3, right?
Okay.
That's what we do there. Now, having done this with clients a lot, you're like, good, I've got the strategy, so on and so forth. It actually takes about a good quarter for you to take that strategy and turn it into the type of content and experiment with that to make sure that it works, right?
Right.
And so what we would start looking at is in quarter 2, it would be some version of implement strategy.
Okay.
So implement what you find here. And it's going to be experimentation, right? Largely.
Right.
And then this would largely be the same thing on this side because you've done the work. Facebook and Instagram feed into each other really well, but largely you're going to be creating a lot of content.
Right.
So your focus blocks for this quarter are not going to be into what am I actually doing here? Mm-hmm. It's going to be I'm doing what I said I was going to do up there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So then rolling into quarter 3, what we start looking at is you figuring out how to develop your social media scoreboards and dashboards so that you know what's actually working and what's not working. This is going to mean the analytics crawl of your website to see what's happening there. It's going to be auditing your sales, auditing your marketing to see what's actually working and what's not working, right? But you're going to need the quarter's worth of data to really see that. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And so what we have here, and trust me, if you haven't done something like that before, and I'm assuming you're a busy woman, right? Yes. It takes a while to figure out how to develop a scoreboard. Like, what are your stats now? What are the stats then? Of all these tweets that of all these, Instagrams that you're putting out, which ones are getting traction? Which ones are not getting traction? What do you need to cull? What do you need to change?
Right.
So this kind of becomes, I'm going to switch to black because you can start to merge them, and you're a good case for merging, right? So audit social media strategy for effectiveness. And here's where you're going to be kicking off new experiments. I'm being very brief here, Cheryl, but
that's fine.
Right. You can kind of see that. Now, that would sort of be the shape of your year as it goes, right? And what we would look at is you're like, wow, I don't have enough traction to really get any grip. Like, how do I do that?
Right.
That's where the monthly levels will come in, right? So if I start saying, okay, if this, I'm just going to pick on Instagram. So we pick one fork. What are sort of 3 to 4 weekly sized projects that you might be able to do in February? I'm going to say January is a wash. So in February, what are 3 to 4 weekly sized projects that you might do that will help you check off this block?
I'm just going off the top of my head. Instagram is visually based, right? So I need to organize, the photos that are going to, that I would post, or the image quotes. Mm-hmm. I use image quotes.
Okay.
And match them up with, the collection of quotes, that would reinforce the message that I'm trying to deliver, which is basically, if you're more organized, if you have a system, it saves yourself stress, time, energy, and money.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one. Have you done research on what tags are brand resonant and which ones actually perform well on Instagram?
No.
Okay. So research brand resonant tags.
Okay.
Tags. And then, do you have another one off the top of your brain?
This is the monthly part. I
guess a weekly size project. Just think of weekly size project.
Start tracking the results.
Okay. Start tracking results. And that would entail when you get into that weekly size project, figuring out what type of spreadsheet is it. Is it going to be a spreadsheet? Where is it going to be a Google Doc? Am I going to use Airbase? What am I going to do that with? Right. But that's what you would decide when you're looking at the weekly momentum planner.
Right.
That's where you'd say, okay, what do I need to do to actually complete this? What does this look like? You don't have to make that decision now though. Right.
Right. So the things you just wrote down, those are the weekly or the monthly? I'm a little confused.
These are, the reason I think weekly size projects in that way is because in my experience, people will start to see that basically this is setting up your Instagram foundation, actually is what it is. Got it. Right. Okay. And so that would be the monthly chunk that I would say that would be a set up, Instagram foundations.
Thank you. That's all I just wanted to clarify that.
Good. Okay. And underneath that would be organized photos.
Right.
Start tracking results. And when those 3 things are done, maybe 4 things.
Right.
Then you can say, I did that for that month. I can move on to March.
Got it. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And so for March, what would you do in March along this same type of project?
I mean, by March, if we're talking about, setting up the story, by March, I should have, be able to show the weekly posting, 3 times a week, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. But that sounds more like a weekly goal.
No, I mean, it's fine. So if you had those 3 things in place, do you think, okay, I've got a growth and engagement strategy with those things in place?
Yes.
Okay. So then is where you can decide, okay, I'm going to move forward into implementing. I'm going to pull up this implementing a little bit sooner.
Okay.
Right. Assuming I've completed all of this.
Right.
But if you haven't, then you got to punt it. Right. So I would say we leave it sort of like this, because as you, I do a lot of work with people building content teams, and there's this thing where I like to call it the content Humpty Dumpty. That once you sort of open up the content thing, all sorts of things start showing up. You realize, oh, wait a second, that's broken, or, oh, I got to get a Google Analytics set up. I've never done that before, right? All sorts of things start to open up once you push the content Humpty Dumpty off the wall, right?
Right, like you're talking about Google Analytics. I have a, that's something that I would probably put as some monthly goal, because I know what they are, but I don't know how to, I'd have to research how to set them up onto my,
Yeah. Well, and that's where I would say that would actually be, when you list them like that, put them in February, because that's part of what you're going to use to track your results. Right.
Okay, got it.
So that's where sort of the brainstorming comes in and on that sort of thing. And then you can say, wait a second, I'm just going to organize photos. I'm going to research brand resonant tags, and I'm going to get Google Analytics set up. That's February.
Got it.
March, I'm going to start tracking results because I got them set up, and I'm actually, I'm actually doing it so I can see it, and they start to feed each other and sort of, go back to sort of that Gantt charty way, or this way of thinking about it, like, okay, I've set myself up so then now I can take this next step, and now I can take this next step. Mm-hmm. And the whole name of the game, I know it sounds oversimplistic, but is to do more of what works and less of what doesn't.
Yeah.
But how do you know what works if you haven't set it up to start tracking it and going forward with that?
Got it.
And so, you can see how we would do the same sort of thing with researching growth and engagement on Facebook. But here's the interesting thing, and this is why I wanted to show this to everyone who's still with us. Thank you, by the way, of the people with us in this. If we have 3 sort of projects, 3 weekly projects for this particular goal, and we had, let's say, 3 projects for this one, all of a sudden you're at 6 weekly projects that you'll need to do over the course of the month. And this is not counting everything else you might be doing. This is just these 2 sort of quarterly objectives.
Right. And that's, I mean, I like your 3 to 5 thing. That's it. That's about all I've got the bandwidth for.
Yeah. And so if that's all you've got the bandwidth for, then you can say, okay, I'm going to set it so that I have, let's say, 4. Mm-hmm. I'm going to balance these. And this is how, like, I say this, I'm writing it in the book right now, but I was like, managing one project, that's like the arithmetic of productivity. Everyone can manage one project. It's when you have to interweave, multiple projects across different slices of time, that becomes more like the calculus of productivity. And it's just more challenging, right?
Well, I mean, exactly. I'm a follower of David Allen and getting things done. And we all of us, regardless of what role we're in, are, constantly balancing 20 to 30 projects.
Yeah.
If not more. So, and I've really liked the way your tool has helped me get, sort of combine my digital tools with the fact that, I like having an analog aspect to it.
Yeah.
And it helps me because if, my clients are always asking these questions, how do I organize everything I have to do? How do I make sure I get it done? How do I, they're asking these questions all the time, and I'm constantly getting asked, well, what's the best tool? I said, the one you'll use.
Exactly, the one you'll use. I'll say the one you use, and you'll use the one that helps you get it done.
Right.
Won't use the one, well, that's almost true. Unfortunately, sometimes because of the learning curve involved, sometimes people won't use the tool that will actually help them get it done because it makes them do things differently, and they don't want to do things differently at a certain level.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of circularity there. But Cheryl, this is a great sort of case because you can see how you would go for this. Now, what I would say in your particular business, probably, and where you are, this is something I want everyone to hear. Please hear me on this. If this feels about as far out as you can see, right? Like 6 months tends to be for earlier stage businesses, about the furthest out that you can see. Don't go into hyper planning March and the weeks and don't go into hyper planning for the quarters and the months that you can't see. Just do the ones that you can see and know that they will open up new possibilities for you. Okay.
And that's helpful because I've tried to hyper plan in the past around this, and that's where I get stuck.
No, you just totally put a placeholder, right? Just like we did here, audit, social media strategy for effectiveness. Once you get there, this is just a reminder that this is a part of time. I've been doing this about 6 months. I probably need to figure out what I'm doing and what works. Then you can dive in because you'll be able to see it at that point and work on it. But you've also made space for it. That's the thing. You've made space that you're going to do it in, and you won't just over plan in that and say, you know what, like, the thing I was talking to Tara Gentile about this on a recent interview. What we all do, not just you, Cheryl, I do it too. What we all do is we assume that, like, in this period of time that we can't see, that's free time. Like, there are no commitments in that time. It's open space that I could do whatever the hell I want. But the really thing about it is we take a portion of our life, and we take all those routines that Chris was talking about, and we put them into the future because we're going to have those same things there.
Right.
And so there is no free time in the future in that same way. Just because you can't see that something there is there doesn't mean that it's not there. Okay. So being able to punt out and saying, okay, in quarter 3, I'm going to do my audit. Oh, and then in quarter 3, I'm probably going to need to figure out how to do this whole email newsletter thing.
Right.
That's where I would say, hey, quarter 3, put that there, or maybe quarter 2. And so that's going to open up like, okay, what's my editorial calendar? Am I going to do a content upgrade? Like, what are those types of things? Those would go in those period. And you could just say, I'm going to do that then, but I don't need to worry about it right now.
Okay. And what do you have written in quarter 4, Charlie?
New experiments.
Oh yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Because you'll have your audit and you're like, okay, this worked. This didn't work. Here's some things. I'm going to double my frequency in posting in this and see what happens.
Okay.
I'm going to stop posting that. I'm going to introduce this new category. It's social media. So there's some new trend that's happened then that none of us can see right now because that's the nature of social media.
Exactly.
And so you're going to try those new experiments again, and you're going to go to this experimentation, review, experimentation, review until you dial in what works for your business.
Super. Thank you.
Okay. So I don't know if I'm the full hero that I might have put out there, but at least this shows how you might walk through there and get to this goal in the end.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.